Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Roger from RogersBase and John from NomComms for part 2 of our discussion about Super Mario Odyssey. But this time we're going into all kinds of spoilers. So if you haven't already finished the game and don't want to hear any spoilers at all, tune out now, because it's going to get pretty rough, as we're talking about it all. So let's get started. Alright guys, so it's time to dive into the nitty-gritty of Super Mario Odyssey. Before, we were taking it pretty easy on the spoiler front, talking in more vague terms, but now I want to dive into everything. I want to talk about the story, final boss, the unlockable kingdoms, all the post-game stuff. I don't know where to begin on this.
We should start with those questions that we left off with on part 1, the 2 that we said we'd save for part 2.
So one of them was, I think, what's your favorite capture target?
The Robin from Bowser Kingdom. I love the little Japanese. Oh, I love that.
That wasn't what I was thinking.
Yes, I love that. Love. I love like bouncing up and down all the different like Japanese castles, and then the boss that you fight as that Robin is incredible. The giant brutal mech thing, dude. That level is like hands down the best Bowser level in any Mario game ever, bar none. And like the way that they redesign, we'll talk about it later, but like the Robin is my answer. We'll talk about Bowser's Kingdom later.
Okay. I have another input for Bowser's Kingdom, but we'll get onto that later. But for the captures, Roger, I thought you were going to talk about Yoshi.
Oh, Yoshi's fun, but I mean, it was just a cute little, like, whatever. I liked getting him, and as soon as we got to the Mushroom Kingdom, me and Andre, I think we got there, like, the same night, because you went to bed. Oh, no, I didn't go to bed. You went to bed, because you were like, And so we ended up getting it around the same time. And I was like, hey, did you find Yoshi yet? He's like, yeah, did you find his house? And I was like, what? You could go to Yoshi's house?
So when you found Yoshi, what did you try and do? Did you try and jump on his back?
No, I tried capturing him immediately. Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to jump on his back. It's like, why isn't this working? And then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, capture him.
I still do that. I still try jumping on Yoshi. So actually, you know what? Let's just go. I want to talk about both the things you guys brought up. I want to talk about Yoshi and Bowser's Kingdom. Yoshi first. So I think it's cool that Yoshi's here. Like, I love the whole Mushroom Kingdom thing. But Yoshi also to me like feels a little bit weird. I'm so used to how he controlled in like Mario Galaxy 2, where I felt like they nailed how he should handle. Where here, where you're not riding on him and you send out his tongue in this single direction at a time, it just felt weird to me. Whereas I loved how in Mario Galaxy you could like lock onto things to have him gobble up everything around you. So I mean, I think it's cool as like a little bonus there. He's not a big part of the game at all, but it made me realize like, man, I really like how he controlled in Galaxy versus how he controls in Mario Odyssey.
One thing I really like about Yoshi is he isn't in the game really much at all. He's in like a couple of stages, if that. And I love that they've given him this attention to detail, because he really is not a prominent part of the game.
No.
Yet, he's still here. And it's great that they've sort of put in these very small details that very few people will actually see. And they really went with it. And yeah, I agree. I think I prefer how he handles in Galaxy 2. But still, it's amazing that he's here.
It is.
And I think there's this one part in one of the challenge levels at the end, I guess we'll get onto this later, where you can sort of use Yoshi's tongue to kind of hit the springs that give out the lasers. And yeah, I kept missing. So I guess the targeting system was better in Galaxy 2.
And speaking of his tongue too, though, he has a new ability where he can climb walls with it. He can like latch onto a wall, pull himself to it like Spider-Man.
Well, I love that. It was like, oh, this is from Chameleon Twist. I'm so glad the team at Mario played Chameleon Twist on N64.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
I love that game.
Where did that come from?
I thought that was a really cool little nod.
Well, speaking of cool nods, like the whole idea of Yoshi being here is because it fits perfectly with the Mushroom Kingdom, which itself is a reference to Mario 64, and you would find Yoshi on the roof. And again, in that game, it's post-game, essentially. So it is neat here, like that is like a reference, like kind of reference within a reference to the fact that you find them also on the roof here, and you can play around in them, and what is really, as you touched on, John, kind of like just an elaborate Easter egg.
Which, by the way, like, that was another moment, walking in the Mushroom Kingdom for the first time and hearing the bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, and it was orchestrated. Like, that was another moment where I started crying. I was like, I can't believe what I'm looking at right now.
It's funny because you and I had slightly different introductions to the Mushroom Kingdom, because you went right forward.
Oh, yeah.
Your introduction was a proper one where you're actually in the kingdom. Mine was, I got the preview from, was it the Sand Kingdom or the Snow Kingdom? I forget. There's one of the portraits you hop into, or maybe I think it was Luncheon Kingdom, and it takes you to Yoshi's house, which is why I brought it up earlier.
Right.
And so you're not actually really in the kingdom. You're like set off a little ways, but you can see the kingdom. I'm like, oh my god, this looks beautiful. I can't wait till I can actually explore it. So it was cool. Like I had a little preview. I got like a little taste of it, and then when I actually went there, I'm like, oh, this is pretty great.
Oh, dude.
However, this I did have a complaint I touched on in the review in very vague terms, that I still wish it had gone the extra mile and had an actual painting from Mario 64 you could hop into to get like an actual recreated level from Mario 64 in this game. Kind of like what they did with the Throwback Kingdom in Mario Galaxy 2, which is a remade version of Thwomp's Fortress.
Right.
I wish he had done that here. It's like, oh, come on. You could spare 7 moons to throw into a painting.
I did like that when you, I don't know if either of you guys unlocked this yet, but there's like that little area near the Goomba Woods where you like hit on the door and then you end up walking into the old N64 modeled courtyard from 64.
That is cool.
And you have to like fight the skeleton ghost things or whatever in order. I freaked out. And then when you see oh my god, when you see the Mario 64 costume and you're dressed up like the N64 Mario, but it's like, oh god. The Mushroom Kingdom was so cool to me. I just like everything about that was so neat.
Oh, that was
and exploring
so good.
around like exploring around the castle, like diving in the moat and being like, oh, can I drain the moat? And yep, you could drain the moat. You can do whatever you want to do.
I like how they made it feel more like an actual kingdom too. Like there's more to this level than just being a recreation of Mario 64's hub. You can go behind the castle now, so there's a whole little new area. And you can also get stars as well. So there are stars in this kingdom rather than moons.
Yeah. And actually, I like what Cappy said, because it's almost like they retconned it. It's like, yeah, it's always existed. It's just the power moons look like stars in the Mushroom Kingdom. He's like, oh, power moons look different here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
great.
I didn't really feel like we needed to have a remade level, because I feel like they kind of made it into a level all its own, in a way that we haven't really had before with this hub.
They did, for sure. I mean, I still love it, don't get me wrong. But there's something that I find a really big appeal in going back to things reimagined in a new way. And that would like put the cap, so to speak, on it. If you had been able to visit the Bomb Battlefield, remade with Aussie graphics, with Aussie, with some new Aussie objectives, and if you had like the wing cap and you could fly around that way, oh my god.
Yes, that'd be incredible.
Well, the one thing to me that I thought, like maybe they'll create this within the world, was when you go into Peach's Castle and you go to the far right, and there's normally that thing you jump into, like the stained glass, and it opens the slide. I thought that might have been in there, and that wasn't. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're probably not going to jump through like paintings into another Mario world. But that was the one thing I specifically looked for. And then the other thing I did was I looked up at the ceiling when I walked in.
I did that right away.
Yeah, right away. And I'm like, okay, can I get the wing cap? Like, what's going on here?
It was still incredible that it gave you a moon for that, though. But yeah, I was thinking to myself, like, will I teleport to the flying cat bit? But no.
Quick question for you guys: have you read the tour guide for that? On the map screen.
I haven't actually.
No.
On the map screen, it mentions that the lake in the southern portion with the Nessie creature or Dory. It says that the lake is apparently, even though it is naturally formed, some people say it's shaped like something familiar. And I'm looking on the map like, what the hell is it? Like, I can't figure it out. So,
no idea.
So if anyone knows, post it in the comments, because I'm baffled by this. I have no idea what it is.
Delfino. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so actually, while we're on this topic, because Andre and I had a bet going in the messages, and actually we didn't even have a bet going because we both thought for sure this was going to happen, is the 250 unlock and the 500 unlock that happen after you get to the Mushroom Kingdom. We didn't know how many moons were in the game, and we were both talking to each other like, I bet you the final unlock is going to be in Isle Delfino, similar to what happened, where like it's like a hub world. You don't go into like any of the areas of Sunshine, but that like Delfino would have been its own kingdom. And I was really shocked that they didn't do that. And then I was thinking about it afterwards, and I kind of touched on this in my review, but I obviously had to like skirt around it a little bit, is I think what they're going to do, and come back to me like next year, like around March, I think when they were developing this game, they initially planned to make Isle Delfino, and they wanted to get this out in time for the holidays, so they stopped, and they put in like the Darker Moon and Darkest Moon, or like whatever they're called, Dark Side and Darker Side or whatever, which I was so pissed about. We'll talk about that later. But like, I thought for sure, if Delfino was not going to be that final unlock, what they might do as DLC later on down the line is add an Isle Delfino like kingdom that you can go travel to. I could see them doing that, and I feel like that does seem like something that got cut from development. When you look at the map and it's very clearly there, and like there's this redone version of the Mushroom Kingdom, and then you get these 2 final unlocks, and they just end up being challenges, both of which could have very easily been fit into the Moon Kingdom. It does make you wonder if they did cut content and they were like, well, you know what, there's enough content in the game that people will be happy if they buy it, we'll just release this as DLC later.
And one thing is, right before the final boss fight, there's 2 portraits. One you can jump in and do the final boss again, and the other one is blank. And it fills when you get all the moons. And I was thinking, will it be Isle Delfino? It's not Isle Delfino. Should we say what it is now, or should we leave that for later?
Yeah, we can say it now.
You're only going to excite people if you don't tell them what it is.
So it's basically just a harder version of the final boss, which is a huge letdown. I mean, I know they're not going to make some elaborate content for getting every moon in the game, because no one's really going to see that, apart from a select few. But I wanted it to be Isle Delfino so much.
Yeah, I mean, same here. And so I guess you're kind of touching on a complaint I had, and that's the final 5% of the game for me. I felt like wasn't as strong as the rest, and granted, that's saying something.
Yeah,
the rest of the game is amazing. But I felt like, when you started getting down to this final few power moons, it did become a bit of a chore tracking them down, even with the hints. Like, some of them were really tough to find. And I felt like my efforts for finding them weren't quite rewarded. I mean, the game does do something for it. I guess I'll just say it, because this is a spoiler version. So if you don't want to hear, tune out. But you get like a gold sail, and you get something else
too. The invisible cap.
I forget. Invisible cap.
Right.
I forget the exact order you unlock all this crap in. But yeah, the final set of rewards aren't quite worth it. In fact, we can probably talk about like the whole post-game thing. So ultimately, the post-game starts off on a super high note.
Yeah.
Mushroom Kingdom, brilliant, love that, fantastic, great. And then you start unlocking additional kingdoms. I know, Roger, I think I want you to describe your reaction to the next couple.
So what happened? Yeah, because we were having this DM conversation because we couldn't talk about it anywhere because of the embargo. But I was like dying to find out what the 250 moon thing was going to be. And after Mushroom Kingdom, I'm like, I'm sure it's going to be Delfino. I'm sure it's going to be Delfino. And you were like, it's not. So just like, just brace yourself. And I was like, all right, well, maybe it's going to be, something else cool. Maybe something on the moon. And I thought maybe it's like a moon base or something. And then I get there and I unlock it. And it was the dark side of the moon. And at first I was like, okay, I mean, if there's another unlock after that, that's fine. We'll see what this kingdom's like. I get in there, and it's literally just a boss rush of the bunnies. And I'm like, are you serious? This is a kingdom by itself? Well, you know what? Hey, we'll see what's going to happen at 500. We'll see. And then Andre's teasing me. He's like, well, it's a little better, but don't expect Delfino. It's not Delfino. I was like, okay. I'm glad you told me that, because otherwise I probably would have been even madder. And then I get there, and it literally says darker side. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And then even like that final rush, like the challenge mode, reminds me a lot of the last area in Galaxy. Like, where you have to do like or Galaxy 2, whichever one it was. It reminds me a lot of that, but it was fun, but it's like not something I'll ever go back to. I want to like go back and explore the other actual kingdoms because I still have moons to unlock there. I don't really care about this. And one of the things we talked about in our DM conversation was like with the Moon Kingdom stuff and even with the Lake Kingdom, it seems like a lot of this could have been consolidated where they had like the Lake Kingdom and the Seaside Kingdom were one. The Moon Kingdom, the 2 extra dark side things were all just built upon with the Moon Kingdom, like how the other levels evolve when you get multi-moons. It would just be like, oh, you unlock the darker side and the darkest side, but they're all part of the Moon Kingdom. And then they really should have built out the Ruin Kingdom to be a full area, because the Ruin Kingdom, getting there was the biggest shock in the world. Seeing that dragon boss, walking into this Dark Souls looking area with like campfires and stuff, I'm like, there's no way they're doing this.
Do you remember when I DM'd you as soon as I got to that point?
Yes!
I'm like, oh shit!
The Ruined Kingdom is literally one of my favorite areas in the game, and it's like 10 minutes long.
Yeah!
Because there are kingdoms in this game that aren't really kingdoms. They're elaborate settings for boss battles, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's great they're putting this kind of effort into just one-off areas, but I want more of them. I really want to explore more of the Ruined Kingdom, and I guess there may be potential for that in DLC, but I don't think so.
Now that would be cool. I'd love a built-out Ruined Kingdom and imagine if that was the DLC pack. That it's like Isle Delfino and a built-out Ruined Kingdom. I'd be like, yup, here's all my money. Take it.
So what did you guys end up thinking of the final challenge level you can unlock, being the Darker Moon?
It was fine, but it wasn't like nothing in it made me go, oh my god, this is amazing. Yeah. Like I thought it was cool that you get into Bowser again, and I thought it was cool that it ended with like the Donkey Kong thing on the wall. But like, I thought it would have been cool if maybe like they mix it up, where like you have an 8-bit DK, but he pops out of the wall and he's like 3D, and then you battle him with Bowser and you're ripping him apart pixel-wise. Like, because even like in the ending of the Moon, when you're like ripping apart the insides of the Moon, it kind of looks like giant pixels. So they could have just used that same effect for like a giant 8-bit Donkey Kong and had like a fight with DK and Bowser. Would have been dope.
You know what?
And like they didn't do that.
That'll especially make even more sense because Donkey Kong literally punched the Moon in Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Yeah. So it's like that would have been so cool if that was the case, and they didn't do it. And that's another thing where it was like they had this potential with this other like darker side kingdom if they really wanted to go there, and it was just kind of wasted. And I know it sounds like we're complaining right now about the game. Like, keep in mind, 95% of this game is godlike. Like, it's literally godlike. A deity came from the sky and created this gorgeous piece of wonder and bliss for us to enjoy for 45 hours. It's just like the last little bit of the game that makes you sort of cringe and go like, why couldn't they have just done this instead, or at least merged it into another thing?
If you drill down, I would have complaints about even Mario 64, which is my all-time favorite game, or at least, was. I mean, every game you can come up with stuff about. So these aren't like, we aren't complaining about this game. This game obviously is amazing. We all gave it positive reviews. So this is all kind of like pie in the sky. But I kind of agree, Roger. And I was a little bit surprised, actually, that Donkey Kong doesn't really appear at all outside of his 2D art in New Donk City and on the Moon, as you mentioned. Because I thought for sure he might play a bigger role, given the fact it's literally called New Donk City. Every street in that city is named after a Donkey Kong character. And
correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, but when you beat the festival, don't the billboards turn into like the old classic Donkey Kong artwork? Yeah, so it's weird.
Yeah. Also, on that note, I guess it's a good time to talk about the festival part, Roger, because we mentioned it before, but it didn't get into details, I think. That's where I also teared up. Like, when I heard Jump Up Superstar, as I'm racing through the 8-bit Donkey Kong-like 2D segments in the city with the fireworks and the music and just everything, I lost it there again. I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. And it's having that... And the thing is, too, I want to kind of touch on a larger point, that I've seen some people like looking up, intentionally looking up spoilers for the game and acting disappointed by it. And I feel like so much of it is like in the moment. Like the game builds up to these moments that if you look at them in out of that context, you're not getting the full experience of it. You're depriving yourself of how the developers intended you to view them.
Well, did you guys in Europe get the same letter from the developers that we got in the US?
We didn't get a letter, no.
Okay, so with our press materials, there was a letter from the developer basically asking us to tell people to avoid spoilers for their first time through the game.
Oh, wow.
And that they should like experience it and like all the love and devotion that they put into like building out the game. And yeah, I totally agree with you, Andre. It feels to me like this is a game that you could really easily spoil, very easily, because you would think like, how do you spoil a Mario game? Of course, Bowser's the final boss. Yeah, and that's true, of course. But like the way the surprises happen and the way even like you get to certain kingdoms, like you don't even get to New Donk City until halfway through the game.
Yeah, that surprised me.
You don't get to New Donk City until halfway through the game.
I thought that for sure would be the first level in the game when it was revealed.
Oh yeah. And it was Cascade.
Yeah.
That's right.
On the topic of sort of respecting the developers, I thought it was super interesting. This is quite small, by the way. In the credits, they aren't listed in their departments. They're all alphabetical order. So it goes from A to Z in their last names, so just random staff members just appear without any hierarchy. And I thought that was incredible.
It's like how all Power Moons are created equal.
Exactly.
That's right.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's just a beautiful experience that I think is best experienced when you're playing it for yourself. If you're actively looking up spoilers, if you're only ruining it for yourself. Because, Roger, as you were kind of saying, like, I've seen that same thing from people being like, it's a Mario game, like, what's there to spoil? Of course you fight Bowser at the end. Spoilers. But no, I mean, with Mario, the spoilers aren't about the story, it's about the gameplay and everything surrounding that.
Right.
I think a lot of people sort of say, like, Mario doesn't really have a story, so what's there to spoil? And I think Odyssey kind of goes above those expectations. Because there isn't really an elaborate story, but the game starts off with your typical just Mario versus Bowser. And I think that it gets that out of the way very quickly.
Real quick, it kind of begins how most Mario games end, where you're facing Bowser. Yeah.
Just really quickly, I was just going to say, too, from like somebody who went to school for theater and English, I think it is such a cool nod to the Odyssey that the story of Mario Odyssey starts in media res, where it's like you literally are thrown in the middle of it, because that was a narrative technique that literally came from the original Odyssey.
That's really cool.
Homer's Odyssey is where that narrative technique comes from. So that's all I was going to say. I want to hear what John was going to say.
Oh, no, I was just saying it gets that Mario versus Bowser showdown out of the way right at the beginning, and then it kind of builds upon that near the end and goes into some pretty crazy places.
Yeah.
I almost don't want to talk about the ending sequence, but it's a spoiler.
I mean, we've already gone past that, so go for it. Yeah.
All right, so you have a little showdown with Bowser, and it kind of culminates all the Bowser boss battles you've had up until then, which I think is only 2. So it puts those together, and then just as you think you finished the game, everything kind of crumbles away, and Bowser's unconscious. Peach and Mario are just kind of wandering around, like, where do we go from here? And then all of a sudden you have the idea, what if I throw my cap at Bowser, and you become Bowser? And I don't know about you guys, but this sequence kind of reminded me of the end of Halo 3, where it's just everything sort of
collapsing and everything,
everywhere.
You're like on the Warthog trying to get out.
Exactly.
Oh, that is...
That's funny that that's what you were reminded of, because to me it was Super Metroid. I was like, okay, you're escaping the planet. Like, that's...
Yeah, I guess that makes more sense.
So, real quick, that is actually the third part of the game where I teared up. So I teared up at the very beginning, I teared up in the middle in New Donk City, I teared up again at the end in that sequence with the song playing and everything, and you're escaping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I lost it again. Like, this is too good.
Oh, how did you feel when you heard those lyrics, like the second song? I wasn't expecting it at all.
I wasn't either.
Me neither.
I
That was
loved
so
it.
Cool.
I loved, like, so, I was a little, okay, let me be completely honest. I was a little bit disappointed by the final battle. I expected just a little bit more. I felt like Mario Galaxies, for instance, is more epic than this one. Even though I very much enjoyed the first Bowser encounter, or first 2, I can't remember how many there were now. But I still liked it. But then, because for sure, I thought for sure you were going to take over Bowser's body at some point. I'm like, you have to. And then that happened in the final segment. I'm like, yes, here it is. This is what I've been waiting for. And that whole segment was beautiful. And I loved, he even had the 2D segment. We were playing as Bowser.
That was great.
Oh, yeah, with Peach on his back.
With Peach on his back. And like shooting fireballs and everything to break through the bricks. Oh, it was great. And then I guess from there, then you have the ending, which I was laughing my ass off at.
Dude, me too. Well, he's not your friend anymore, but he's my friend. I was going to say there's a certain ex-friend of GameXplain who saw that and was like, I can't believe that Peach would do that to Mario. Because to me, I don't know about you, Andre, like, again, we were playing this blind. Like, obviously, very few people had the game and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And I got to that sequence, and it was like 3 a.m. in the morning. I just beat the whole moon sequence. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm about to fall asleep. And then as soon as Mario got down on one knee and gave her the rocket flower, I'm like, there's no freaking way 30 years later they're actually finally going to do this. Like, yes, give it to her. And then when she walks away, I'm like, there's no... I got very mad at Peach in that moment. I was like, I cannot believe you right now.
I thought it was
liked it too.
Super empowering.
Like, now I like it. Now that we're away from it. But at 3 a.m. After the whole thing, I was like, "There's no way you're doing this, man. Come on!" Like,
I mean, you once you get into the I feel like it was the best choice. Just make her walk away.
Yeah, and then the post game too with her is awesome because then she's like, "I'm going on my own honeymoon. I don't need you guys." And she brings Tiara with her, and she goes to all the kingdoms. I love that.
I was kind of hoping that we could maybe play as Peach and Tiara, but it's still cool that she has her own little subplot going on, but I wanted to do more with Peach.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of how you would come across Luigi randomly in Mario Galaxy, I believe, and you would give it like a power star. Actually, it's basically the exact same thing.
I mean, we have Captain Toad for that too. Just kind of gives you power stars.
That's true.
And the little Toad that likes listening to his music, where he's like, "Hey, give me a song!"
By the way, that is such a cool idea. Like, it's almost fourth wall breaking in a way because it's using things you're unlocking in the game, in order to unlock other stuff in the game or earn these power stars. Like, that is such a cool idea. Like,
I think it shows how memorable the game is too. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I got most of these Toad music puzzles like immediately. Like, he's like, "Show me this music."
Oh yeah,
I know that one.
Yeah, like the one where he asked you in New Donk City, where he's like, "Show me one where it's a little motor or something," and I'm like, "Oh, clearly that's the RC car song," and then it was right away. Or like when there was one where like, "Oh, an epic final battle," and I was like, "Oh, clearly, all right, the song that played during the moon. Here you go." It's like, "That's it, thanks."
So I guess while we're talking about the ending, and let's end the final boss too. How do you think they compare, both the final boss and the ending, to other Mario games? Any Mario game?
The sequence in its own is incredible, and it's my favourite ending sequence of a Mario game. The boss, though, it's good, but it's not the best.
Yeah. Totally agree with you there. The sequence is fantastic. I actually, well, you're reminded of Halo 3, which I totally see now. I was reminded of Uncharted. Like, I was thinking of, like, when you're in a building, it's collapsing, you're trying to escape or something. But, as you touched on, I think the boss fight is a little bit weak compared to what I had expected they might do, or hoped they would do, especially coming off Galaxy, which I think has had one of the most epic boss fights of any Mario game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Galaxy for me probably still tops it. Like jumping around on those giant lava balls in the sky with the sun in the background, and you hear the epic choir like, oh. It's like you can't beat that.
Though I think Galaxy does it a tad too often. Galaxy kind of tries to teach you, and 64 does this too actually. And they sort of teach you the final boss fight throughout the game. So like you have little sequences building up to it. Whereas Odyssey does do that, but it's not quite as on the nose.
I think it's probably, because the second half, they don't really, where you're escaping, but the actual Bowser fight's pretty much the same as the
I was going to say, I think Odyssey is almost more on the nose, because you do face Bowser earlier, and it's the exact same thing, just harder, or harder later on.
Yeah, I mean, what are the battles? You have the Cloud Kingdom battle, which is the boxing bit, and I think there's is there another one?
Yeah,
the Ruin Kingdom, you battle the dragon with like the electrical things on the ground. And that's it. And then you get to Bowser in the end of the game, Yeah,
that's true. Okay, yeah. I was thinking there's two of them.
It's a little bit confusing. The structure of the game is definitely different from any other Mario game, which is also something that I didn't expect. How we can talk about now, like with the Lost Kingdom, how you get attacked by Bowser and you end up down there. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. And you could choose which kingdoms in certain instances, too. Like, oh, we have two different paths. You want to go to the Snow Kingdom or you want to go to Seaside Kingdom? You know, or like you want to go to Wooded, or
you and I were in sync for a while, but then we split at some point. I forget which one.
Yeah, I think Shiveria, right? You did Shiveria first.
I think that's it.
Oh, I don't know about you guys actually. I was working with Nintendance trying to find some of the Last Moons, and I was trying to show him where a portrait was, and I was in the Mushroom Kingdom, and my portrait took me out in the Snow Kingdom. But for him, it took him into the Sand Kingdom, the exact same portrait.
Oh.
So I don't know if there's some kind of random generation now. I have no idea.
I wonder if it does change depending on which branches you choose. Maybe, yeah, because our destinations were completely different. So, that's probably it. It's probably the route you take. That's interesting.
I thought that was very strange.
The Bowser Kingdom. Again, like we brought this up earlier, but I feel like we are so accustomed, even in the Galaxy games, to the Bowser, final castle area looking the same. It's like the same gray building. And you still have the lava, and there's the Koopas, and there's other stuff that's thrown at you sometimes in bullet bills, but like, it's usually the same version. And what I love is they took the one thing beyond the amusement park that I loved in Mario 3D World, which was like the Japanese style area.
Yes.
And they're like, you know what, we're gonna build it out and we're gonna throw Bowser onto it. And Bowser's castle this time is gonna be a feudal Japan castle. And there's gonna be Japanese robins all over the place. And it's gonna have Seamus in it. And it's gonna be a full orchestra. And you're gonna battle this giant mech monster that the bunnies take control of. Like, and then, oh my god, when you capture the little stone guys, and then the 2D segments that are in the folding screen inside of the samurai house, like, there is so much amazing stuff that's built into that level. And so to me, I thought like that was really like where the game climaxed for me prior to the final boss, because I thought getting to the Moon Kingdom for the first time was cool, but we kind of like already knew that from doing like analysis videos and talking about it. Like we kind of all knew the moon was something we were going to go to, but like feudal Japan Bowser themed is not at all what any of us expected, and so that was a huge surprise and something I loved in the game.
Yeah, it did remind me a bit of those levels in 3D World, the Japanese temple levels they had. Yeah, it was a cool theme, and I liked playing through it the first time. However, I wasn't a huge fan of it when I was looking for those final few moons. That kingdom is a little bit tricky to get around, and they hid some of those things, and especially the coins in some very devious places. And I found like I was running along the rooftops, like trying to angle the camera in a way to look at the walls to see if there's anything hidden along them, and then you have to take the bird character and like to travel along the wall, which can take a while. So while I enjoyed it the first time through, I wasn't a huge fan of revisiting it, I found.
Oh, weird. See, when I was always looking forward to going back there. Like, if ever I'm sick of another kingdom, I just go, I'm just going to go back to Bowser and I'll find something, and I usually do. But I love, too, the other thing about the Bowser Kingdom is it feels like the most galaxy-like kingdom in the game.
Absolutely.
Because when you're jumping between the different islands, like instead of taking the star that you launch off with, you're just a little electrical version of yourself, and you slide between the two buildings. And like some people might not like that about it, but I actually thought it was really refreshing because it threw in this like galaxy-type style in a game that's already been built out like a Mario 64. But each of the separate like islands of Bowser's Castle, like part 1 when you're in the courtyard, and then part 2 when you're behind it, like all of those areas feel like they're their own little mini kingdoms inside of a bigger overall kingdom, and they still carry the theme, and it's all together and cohesive, and you could warp whenever you want. Dude, I could like rant and rave about how much I love Bowser's Kingdom, man. It's probably Bowser's Kingdom, Wooded Kingdom, and New Donk are probably my 3 favorite. I love all 3 of those.
What I love about Bowser's Kingdom is the progression of it. So you're sort of always moving upwards. So it feels like you're going towards Bowser, and you really feel how tense this final encounter, what you think is the final encounter, you really feel how intense it is. And you're sort of building yourself up to it too. And right at the end, obviously, you don't fight Bowser, and you fight the Broodals instead. And I really love that boss battle too.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those boss battles that utilizes the capture abilities. So you sort of, I believe you use is it the birds in that one?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
and then there's also a darker moon version of that, which I think uses something else. It uses the stretchy
Hammer
things,
Brother.
maybe? The Hammer Bros. Yeah, that's it.
yeah, you do use the Hammer Bros. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
No, that boss fight was awesome. I did not see
absolutely.
that coming. Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool too because it kind of plays on like the Japanese theming too. Because obviously the whole thing's built out like it's feudal Japan, but a giant mech is obviously very entrenched in Japanese culture. So to throw that in there in the way that they did, I thought was really freaking cool.
No, it was really neat how, you had to knock out like its legs to knock it over. Then you had to climb up those legs, which would be in different arrangements depending on how you attacked it.
And what John was talking about too with like climbing up the kingdom, it always feels like you're getting toward that final objective. Like the bouncing flags and all the different like cool aspects of just like the look of the kingdom itself, like all the decorations around everything, even if you can't interact with them, they just seemed very different from anything I've seen in a Mario game before. I appreciate that a lot.
I'm with you. Absolutely.
And I also quite like how, it's Bowser's Kingdom, and it's quite desolate. Like, all these other kingdoms are sort of bursting with life, and they have some kind of NPCs, whereas here, it's literally just you and, I guess just Bowser's minions.
That one samurai guy who's like, hey, you want to walk to my house?
Now, something we haven't talked about too much yet is actually the moon. We talked about in broad terms earlier with it, the final couple kingdoms being disappointing with the dark side and then the darker side, which is still hilarious to me. Like, who would have ever saw that coming?
I think it's funny.
The darker side. But the moon is, even though we all expected it, it's still, I wasn't quite sure what to expect from it. The whole atmosphere for the moon at first is fantastic, I thought. We can hear the bell chiming in the background. And as you're working away to this distant wedding chapel, and it looks so far away at first, and it takes a little while to get there. And then once you enter it, the interior is massive, and you're walking in this really long corridor, and then Mario finally bursts into the actual wedding ceremony, and you're seeing Bowser trying to forcibly put the wedding ring, the wedding band on Peach, which is amazing. And I love how that whole sequence is actually like interactive. Like you can actually explore the room and talk to people as Bowser's fighting for Peach. And I just thought that was like a brilliant build-up. Again, something we haven't quite seen before in a Mario game.
And the ring thing made me laugh out loud too, because remember all the way back in the Sand Kingdom, when you battle the Aztec god, they're like, what the heck? You took my ring. What's wrong? And then you beat up the dude, and then now you get to the wedding ceremony, and it's clearly like meant for his hands because he's these giant, enormous hands, and Bowser's trying to fit it onto Peach's like neck, and she's like, I'm not about this life.
Oh, yeah.
The context of how all these wedding elements sort of fall together is so good. Like,
dude, bubbling with the champagne.
Yeah.
Or no, bubbling water.
Oh, sparkling water.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you've got like the flowers from the Wooded Kingdom. You have obviously the ring, and it just all comes together, and it just feels so right too. And it brings all these obscure elements and adds further context to why you're sort of trotting the globe like this, and why Mario's in all these different locales. And
the bride's dress comes from Lake Kingdom, and then they've got the frosted cake from Shiveria. It goes in line with the themes of these kingdoms too. It feels like a natural, like, oh, of course Bowser would go there. That is the place that would have the best version of this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Good point. Now, after one of the other kingdoms you unlock is the Dark Moon, and it has an element that's also used elsewhere, but it's brought even more prominently here, being those really abstract pictures you can find, which point to moons or give you a hint as to where moons are in other levels in the game, but it doesn't tell you where. It doesn't tell you where at all, and I kind of love those. Like, it was such a unique puzzle, and like these are things I would expect to find more in a Zelda game even, because some of these pictures are really freaking abstract. Like, my favorite is when you see the one of what almost looks like South Park characters. Like, they have like 3 or 4 colors each, and you have to figure out like what those correlate to, and it shows like a moon underneath one of them. It's like, what in the hell is that? Like, what does that mean? And I kind of loved how they made you think about what you've seen already in just a different way.
I think internet culture will ruin this.
It's true.
Because we were forced to find out on our own, because we can't just Google it. I think people will attempt it for a few minutes and go, I don't know what it is, I'll just Google it. And I think that's going to completely ruin these puzzles, and that's a real shame. I'd say to anyone listening to this, don't Google it, just try. And use your memories of all these different kingdoms. Like, look at these pictures and just think to yourself, where could this possibly be? And yeah, I love these. I think they're fantastic puzzles.
Did any of them stand out to you in particular, or any give you any major problems?
Yeah, I had a few problems. Yeah, there's the one kind of spells out a word. I couldn't find that for a long time. Yeah, that's it.
That one, oh my god. Okay, I'm angry about that one, because I was expecting something far more. So ironically, I think maybe I should have done that one first, because by the time I finally got around to doing that one, I was still used to doing these really abstract, or what felt to me like these really abstract ways of thinking about these things. But no, that one, they're literally just looking for that word. And it's in a place, I mean, it's in the most obvious of places too. Whereas in hindsight, like, at the time, I was expecting it to be like that word spelled out in like via structures in the game or something, or like there are passageways or something. So I'm like, oh man, like you probably have to like climb up this tunnel like to find this little ledge, you have to ground pound for the star or for the moon.
One thing I really like about these two is we mentioned this with Yoshi, and in that they kind of bring him in for some very small segments, and I love that Poochie is in some of these pictures.
Yeah!
Oh yeah, you're right!
Anywhere else in the game, he's just in these pictures.
You actually, if I recall correctly, you actually dig him up briefly at one point.
Oh really?
Yeah, he pops out of the ground and I think he just disappears instantly.
Poochie?
Yeah!
Wow.
I don't remember that.
Maybe I'm misremembering, but I swear to God, I found him at one point, so...
Well, still, that's a very small role even then, and it's incredible they're putting this sort of attention to detail in something that Roger and I missed, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's super cool. Like, it's a neat reference regardless. Like, it's cool that Poochie's here. I mean, this game kind of, like, is almost a unifying Mario game. It's bringing together all these, elements that either haven't been used in a while or never were in a proper Mario game. Like, they brought Pauline into the mainline games. We have all these Donkey Kong references, which have never been made before.
Dude, I'm so happy Pauline is like finally back in action, because we have a good brunette instead of the garbage one we have now. Now we've got Pauline and Peach and Rosalina. You've got the perfect 3. No other princess exists. We don't need to include her anymore. She doesn't even need to be in Mario Kart anymore. Throw Pauline in there. I love Pauline. She's great.
Can we talk for a moment just about how great Pauline is in this game?
She's wonderful.
Touching on that point, Roger, what's really funny about her is so all the Nintendo female characters went in the opposite direction. They went from like brunettes to blonde. She went in the opposite of that, and she went from being blonde in the original Donkey Kong artwork now to being brunette, which is she's like the lone holdout. So,
but I guess she was redesigned in Mario vs. Donkey Kong as well, though.
That's true. That's true.
But Roger, you made a brilliant point just now. Why isn't she in Mario Kart?
Right. Oh, she will be now. That's a guarantee. I mean, that's like
she's here to stay now.
Yeah.
You know, and what's funny is she almost acts as like a gateway for New Donk City making sense in a way. Like, because for whatever reason, New Donk City I think we didn't know about Pauline initially, right? When they first showed off New Donk City, or did we? I can't even remember now.
No, yeah, we knew about Pauline right away.
Oh, did we? Okay, I can't remember anymore.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought Pauline was debuted in the E3 trailer. Was she definitely in the January one?
Maybe she wasn't in the okay,
yeah,
I'm thinking about
so.
E3.
Okay.
You're right.
Because when we first see New Donk City, it's like, wow, that looks really different for a Mario game. But Pauline, though, she's always had, or since Mario and Donkey Kong games at least, she's always had that, like, that slightly more realistic art style, more realistic proportions, I suppose. So she's kind of like she's kind of the gateway between New Donk City making sense in Mario's universe.
Yeah.
But I just love her. I love what they did with her. I love that she's this focal point of the game, or for New Donk City at least. I like how she's a mayor. I love.
Yeah, she's awesome, and everybody loves her.
That song is so good, by the way. My God,
oh man,
we already
I've
talked
heard
about
it so many times, and I still love it so much.
I mean, especially again when you hear it in the proper context. I feel like, and you don't just look up a YouTube video. If you're actually playing it in that context, oh my God, it touched me. It's good.
Oh, and have you guys listened to the Japanese version?
Oh, they just released it. And in fact, you know how I heard the Japanese version the first time? I went into the music menu.
Yeah, that's how I heard it
just
too.
because I was looking for the Bowser's Kingdom music to use in my review, and I looked down and I saw a Japanese version, and I was like, what? And it sounds the same. And then, yeah, it's being sung in Japanese. I'm like, this is so cool!
that wasn't even in like, any Japanese promotional
Nothing at
material
all. No, just the English version, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, New Donk City is just so good in every way.
we can all agree that's definitely going to be in the next Smash Brothers, like, for sure.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
New Donk City
my
is
God.
100% going to be a stage in the next
think about
Smash
that.
Brothers.
Well, you know what's funny?
Oh, yeah, and the T-Rex and Pauline, and it's done.
So for whatever reason, that thought hadn't occurred to me. But what the thought that did occur to me is New Donk City, probably because you can drive in New Donk City, it's going to be the next Mario Kart game, too.
That, too. Yes. It'll be in both. Yeah.
Oh, my God. New Donk City, an instant classic. Holy crap.
Yeah.
So good.
It's going to be really interesting to see how Odyssey shapes the spin-offs. Because, you know, in the GameCube era, Sunshine massively influenced, like, the Thousand Year Door, for instance.
Yeah.
So I wonder, you know, where's the next Paper Mario going to take place? Where is Mario Golf going to have, like, an off-shot in New Donk
City? There's going to be the next Paper Mario. That's cute.
Oh, don't say that.
I know. I hope so. Please. You kind of bring up a good point. Like, the Mario games are always influential in what comes afterward, and it'll be interesting to see what shape, the spin-offs become. But also, that raises the question also of what form does the next Mario game take? Where did they go from here? And I remember having the exact same question after Galaxy 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember talking to my friend, I was like, where could they possibly go after space?
Right? After
and now
space,
I'm like, where can they possibly go after this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of think we talked about this a little bit in part 1, didn't we? And actually even earlier in this discussion, but I kind of feel the same way about Mario that I do about Zelda now, which is that you can't go back. There's no way you can go back after what we got. And I think, like, with Breath of the Wild, the next step they have to do with Zelda is, like, maybe something top-down, like, go back to top-down, maybe do, like, a Four Swords type game, something co-op, something very different. And then if they're going to build out another Zelda game, use the engine. I mean, you just made this whole engine for it. Like, clearly they put a lot of time into it, and the Switch is a success. It's not going anywhere, and these came out year 1 of the system. Like, imagine if Galaxy came out at the very first year of the Wii. I guess technically it kind of did, because it was the, like, November 2007, right? And then the Wii was 2006. So I guess it kind of did, and I guess Odyssey's kind of in the same time frame, but actually it still is earlier in terms of the Switch because it came out in March. So what I'm thinking is maybe for the next game after this, they could either build upon this one with DLC and then go a different direction and make, like you said, Andre, a Mario Maker 2, or they could just go balls to the wall and, like, do Galaxy 3 and do some, like, weird kind of, like, step away, not necessarily this game, but also still use this engine. Or they could just do the easiest thing and just make an Odyssey 2, and I would be totally happy with that.
I kind of think we're in an era that we weren't in with the Wii, where they probably will just expand Odyssey with DLC. I mean, the Wii didn't really have the capacity, because most of its WiiWare titles were 40 megabytes. So I'm not entirely sure they had the capacity to actually make more levels via DLC on the Wii. Whereas I think Odyssey is very expandable. You can simply just add new kingdoms to the level selection. There's no hub. You can just sort of put them in there. And we've already seen Isle Delfino is on the world map and promotional materials, so I think they can slide that in very easily.
To support that idea, I think I found it interesting that every kingdom has 2 names. You have, like, the Wooded Kingdom, and then, or you have, like, a Metro Kingdom, and then its subname, New Donk City. And I wonder if that's a clue, or a hint maybe, that there could be more sub-kingdoms or sub-levels within these kingdoms. So maybe they could make...
interesting.
So they could, right? So Delfino Island could be a second kingdom of the Mushroom Kingdom, or whatever.
Or the Seaside Kingdom, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that means they could probably reuse assets from those kingdoms to make entirely new kingdoms, along with some new stuff as well. But it would make sense, like in the Snow Kingdom, you reuse the snow assets, but you make a whole new level based around that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they really do make like a whole, like I could really see a whole second DLC campaign, a little bit like what they may be doing with Zelda Pack 2.
I mean, back to Isle Delfino actually. In part 1, we said Odyssey pretty much has the mechanics of Flood in shape there. So, you can use Cappy to get rid of piles of goo, you have the capture that makes you fly, the water capture, and you of course have the flowers that propel you too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I wonder, would they put Flood into there, or would they just reuse those elements?
I hope they don't. We don't.
Yeah, I hope they don't either. I hope they just like use the elements that are already built into the game.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be cool to explore Delfino without Flood. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean,
see it when it's not ruined by sludge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if they bring back Delfino Island, Flood will be there in some form. He'll probably, hopefully, sitting in a garbage bin or something,
or in a museum or something.
Yeah.
Like EGAD has a little museum. Like that'd be cute.
I mean,
I'd
he'll be there in some form, but I don't think you'll play as him because they already have the mechanics there, as you mentioned, between Cappy and the captures. There's no reason why they can't just have that gameplay with the existing style of Mario Odyssey. And I think that'd be fun. Like, I actually like Island Delfino. I think it's a fun place to explore. In a way, it almost feels like a prototype of New Donk City, like where it's it's a small town. You can bounce between buildings. So I could definitely I think it would actually work really well for this game. And it's actually a level I hoped would have appeared in Splatoon. I thought that'd be a fun arena even to battle in. So yeah, I actually, the more I think about it, the more I see either a Galaxy 2 type sequel where, I mean, really, I expect something along the lines of Galaxy 2, except for Mario Odyssey. I just don't know whether it'll be a whole new game or the form of a DLC campaign. But given what we're seeing with Zelda, I'm thinking maybe a DLC campaign. I think that makes sense.
I mean, the sky's the limit with this style. You can literally just keep making more kingdoms.
Yeah.
Yeah!
I mean, the fact that I've played 60 hours of this game at least, probably more than that, and I want more, it's telling you something. So.
It's just funny. I guess I wasn't thinking about it in terms of we are in the internet world, but everything could just be DLC nowadays. I mean, there's no reason it doesn't have to. And that's what I want Smash Brothers to be. I want Smash to be a platform like Overwatch. I want Mario Kart. Like they probably will make another Mario Kart. Like I don't think it'll just be deluxe. They might do something very different, but I do think there will eventually be a 9. But I mean, if they wanted to, they make another DLC pack for 9 and do a New Donk City level and Pikmin or whatever. I totally would be fine for that. I wouldn't need a 9. Put it all in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Right.
Or Diddy Kong Racing 2.
Or Diddy Kong, yeah. Or they probably wouldn't do Diddy Kong, but I could see them doing Mario Kart Adventure or something like Mario Kart and Friends or something.
I so want an adventure-style Mario Kart. If you had levels like New Donk City, for instance, in Mario Kart, we could drive around and do stuff. In the style of Diddy Kong Racing, but vastly upgraded. That'd be amazing. I mean,
they could do those with the assets they have now, with the Mario Kart assets and this. They could literally just make that game right now.
That'd be great, yeah. Anyways, we're getting off track again. But that would be fantastic. So I think I've got some more questions here we could address real quick in the spoiler section if you guys want.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so Howlin' Soup asks, how do you feel about the future sizes of Nintendo games in reference to the number of Super Mario Odyssey Power Moons and Breath of the Wild Korok Seeds? So basically, in both of these games, we've had 900 collectibles. Do you think that's a good idea for Nintendo moving forward? Do you want to see that many collectibles in the future in future games, or do you think they should dial it down?
I'm not a fan of going for size. I think a lot of people look at open world games and go, well, this one is this many meters, this one's this many meters. I don't think that matters. I think it's being intelligent with that space. So, I think with Odyssey, the point of the game is to try and get as many power moons as you can. So I think it makes sense to have this many of them. But I don't think they should just go for scale for the sake of scale. If Metroid Prime 4, for instance, is massive, I think that would overwhelm me. Yeah, so I personally don't think they should just shoot for being as big as they can be. I think both Breath of the Wild and Odyssey kind of justify their size.
I agree with that, definitely for Mario, less so for Zelda. I mean, just because the Korok Seeds literally did nothing for me. I felt there was no incentive to find them, and then the game almost makes a mockery of it if you do, by giving you a giant pile of poop. So, which on the one hand I kind of respect, is you wasted your time doing this, this is what you get.
I don't think they wanted you to do it, though. I think that was the point. They're just kind of oh, you went up here, have a Korok Seed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a natural progression kind of upgrade. Which is, I mean, technically what they do with this. You don't need anything past 500. Everything else is just fun. Just explore and, do it at your own time. Which is, why, when we were having that discussion about speedrunning earlier, it was that that isn't. I mean, you could play the game that way if you want to, but like for me, I feel like that's like the least optimal way to play this game. You should take your time, explore. Don't go online. Don't look at spoilers. Don't look at guides. Just make your way through it. You'll get through the game. Yeah. It's easy enough. You'll make through it.
Exactly. And actually, speaking of the post game, that reminded me of something real quick. Of the final sequence, I suppose, like probably the final proper sequence of the story, if you want to call it that, is in the Darker Moon. When you finally beat that final challenge level, you reach the end and you have to climb the tower. And I really enjoyed that. Like, you had this quiet moment where you're climbing this giant tower, and as you're doing so, Cappy is like talking to you, like reminiscing about the adventure you had with him already. I'm like, oh, that's touching. That's like it's just a cute little thing that they threw in there for. They didn't have to, but it's just like a little small moment, I thought.
Yeah, that was really touching, actually, and it sort of ends as it begins, because you jump up the building to begin with as a frog, who is the very first enemy you
capture. The very first thing. That's right.
Good point. I didn't make that connection. You're right.
You were mentioning moments you choked up, and I'd mentioned previously Mushroom Kingdom and the festival, and I forgot what you said. Your third one was the moon, right? See, for the moon, it was just like exciting. I wanted to get through it. I wanted to know like what was going to happen afterwards. Like, so I wasn't really like, I don't know. I didn't really have like an emotional tie, and I thought the ending, like I said, I was equal parts angry and also laughing out loud because I thought it was like I was mad in the moment for Mario, but I was laughing because I think it made for an awesome ending. And yeah, it did. Like, it was empowering. It turned everything on its head. I liked that. It did, but the moment that I also kind of got kind of teary-eyed was that last moment up on top. Even though I was very annoyed with like the final kingdom, that last jump you're making. Like all the way up the wedding chapel, and you're talking, or it wasn't a wedding. It's like the New Donk City,
it's like
building or whatever. But it's like a building, and you're jumping up it, and then Cappy's like, "Man, we really did go on a lot of adventures. Like this was a lot of fun. Like it's sad that we have to bring this to an end, but I'm glad that I was here with you. I was happy to have walked a mile in your shoes or like on your head or whatever." And it got to me. I actually like choked up a little. It wasn't as an emotional impact as like the New Donk City Festival was or like Mushroom, but I was like. Cappy, I love you too.
Because it's so cool. You actually are reminiscing in your mind about all these adventures you've been on, and you're like, wow, this actually has been an incredible journey.
Yeah. It truly was an odyssey. And it is such a great way of wrapping up what is really the game's ultimate challenge. Like, you go through hell getting to that stage, and then you have that final moment of melancholy. It is just perfect. I loved it. It was such a great touch. Here's another question from Zachary Yarrow. They ask, everyone has been praising Odyssey so much. I kind of just want to hear what people think it did wrong. Now, I know we already touched on this a little bit to some degree, and obviously we all love the game, so I don't think we have too much to say here. But is there anything else you guys can think of that Odyssey did that maybe it didn't do as well as it could have or should have?
We touched on how the Ruin Kingdom was quite small, but to be honest, I'm impressed that they put that much effort into a boss arena.
Yeah.
So I'm disappointed that I couldn't explore it more, but I am very impressed that they actually went through just for that little fight. Mm-hmm. I really don't. I am floored with this game. I love it so much.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on all the things that I brought up as like cons in my review, which was like the lack of a hub world, which it's hit or miss. Your opinion could be one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. And in the grand scheme of things, like who cares? But my big complaint was honestly like the reward system. I think there should have been some other way to build it out. And me and Andre had this discussion in DMs where the last unlock should not have been the moons. The last unlock should have been Mushroom Kingdom. That would have been like, I think if I had gotten to that point and like we did the moon and the other moon things, I'd be like, okay, and then we get to the ending and then it's like Mushroom Kingdom. That would have been incredible. I think it was just a problem with like the way they laid out the endgame rewards.
Right.
Like Mushroom Kingdom is there. It's just that where they put it within the post game, it's not in an optimal place. And yeah, like you do have that final moment we were just talking about with Cappy and the darker side, but that could have, I don't know. They could have like redirected you to Moon Kingdom or something. I really think like Mushroom should have been the last big unlock.
Well, especially because with how the map lays out, when you beat the Darker Moon and then connects to Mushroom Kingdom, which it did
it's like a giant circle.
Yeah. So I actually totally agree with you. I think, wow, that's interesting. They had just made that small tweak. Like what feels like a small tweak. It may not be, but I mean, it feels like it wouldn't be that hard to move that content later on. I think it actually would have been more rewarding in a way.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you hit on something there, Roger.
In this mindset, I think what they may have wanted to achieve was a lot of players just kind of finish a game and shelve it. And I think they wanted to end it on a really high note for those people. So like you finish the credits and like, oh, it's the Mushroom Kingdom, and then all of a sudden you're there. I agree that I think there should have been a way to earn it, because you think how Galaxy and 3D World had those final kingdoms you didn't just have. You had to actually go out of your way and find more stars and moons to get them.
Right.
Yes, I think it's probably for the best in a sense to have the most exposure you can get from that. But at the same time, I would have loved that to be a reward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could have been really something special. But I totally get that point too, what you're saying, because most people aren't going to 100% this game.
Right.
And that's also why, like, even though I talk about it a decent amount in my review, like, it ultimately didn't really factor in. Like, yeah, the final 5% of the game is a little bit of a drag, and that the ultimate reward is not that great. So I had a great time for the rest of the game, and it was amazing.
But see, like, what you just brought up, like, oh yeah, not a lot of people are going to 100% the game. I totally agree. But, like, I think because it's not at the 100% marker is another reason why it's, like, annoying. Because then it happens at, like, 500.
Yeah.
And I think enough people would have gotten to the Mushroom Kingdom at 500. And then the last, like, 400 or whatever, they can get on their own way. Because then, at that point, Toadette's giving you all the achievements, and you have, like, the stars, and there's a lot of stuff to get there. I think that would have been fine. They could have easily made that the last one at 500. Or even, like, not have a 500 unlock. Just put it at 250. You know, that'd been fine.
Yeah. That's true.
I like this compromise. Like, what if the very final unlock was like Bob on Battlefield?
Well, okay, that would have been amazing.
I mean, that would have been... like, if they... Oh, my God. What if they had, like, the door when you... Like, you go into Peach's Castle, they have the door, the star door, but instead of, like, no stars, like in the original game, now it has, like, 984 or something.
Okay, that'd be incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Oh, man. Now I'm crushed. That would have been freaking amazing. But regardless, yeah, this game truly is fantastic. So,
oh yeah,
I'm pretty much out of questions. So, do you guys have any final thoughts at all about any spoilerish stuff that we couldn't touch on before that you want to bring up before we fully wrap it up here?
Really, I think the game just keeps going. I think the post-game is where it really begins. The adventure is obviously a roller coaster of emotions, but you're going to spend most of your time looking for moons in this game. And I think it does a brilliant job of getting you to want to look for them. Like, I never felt fatigued playing Odyssey. And I never felt like I wanted to stop playing, really. But even in the later half, I know it definitely does lose some steam towards the end. But I still happily went for those moons.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I got this game in, because North American press were really under the gun with this game. We didn't have nearly as long as European press. And so I had to put in like 10 to 12 hour days on literally just playing this game. That was my whole day. I wouldn't even go outside.
Dude, that was my Sunday. That was when we were DMing each other nonstop. We literally were sitting on our couches, DMing each other, saying, "Where are you right now? What did you just see? What did you do?" It was like, I even wrote that on your the review you put up in the comment section. I was like, we were literally Mario and Cappy. We were on this adventure together.
We were companion buddies on this journey. And I had no problem with that. I mean, there is almost no game I can do that for. I can't sit down anymore and play a game for 12 hours a day for 4 or 5 days in a row. Yet, honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not the ideal situation, but I didn't mind it. Like, I had a blast with the game still. So the fact that was the case, I wasn't hating every moment of that game from that experience, really says something to how good the game is. So
thank you, Nintendo.
Right? Thank you. So true. It's such a great game. And I don't know how long it'll be until we have another one like it. But hey, maybe Odyssey 2 or the DLC pack. That could be it. So
we can only hope.
We can only hope. All right, John, where can people find you at?
They can find me on Twitter at NomComms and also on YouTube at the very same name, NomComms, where I review and cover Nintendo-related news.
And how about your RogersBase?
You can find me at RogersBase on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Thanks for the plug, Andre.
I took care of it for you. I got you, man. And of course, you can find links to all that in the description below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on Super Mario Odyssey and everything else Nintendo as well. Catch you later. Bye.